What we saw yesterday on Friday in preparation for the Italian Grand Prix at Monza turned in today for a pole position for Ferrari, for Spain's Carlos Sainz. Absolutely stunning lap. As I said yesterday, he's been looking really good in that car over the last 4 or 5 races in terms of consistency and resilience under pressure, as we saw at Zandvoort. And today at Monza, he was just superb in the Ferrari. As we also said yesterday, very similar lap times between Red Bull and Ferrari, with the one big proviso that Ferrari were doing that lap with a considerable, significant top speed advantage over Red Bull. The big question overnight was whether Red Bull would revise their setup, would take downforce out of the car in effect to get more top speed. So let's have a look before we go any further at what happened in the fuel runs in FP3. This is with the basic Red Bull package that Max Verstappen is now taking into the race, with the Red Bull engineers having gone through all the data on Friday night and come up with the best possible setup. So let's have a look and see what they did on that fuel run, which was a very, very significant pointer, I think, as to how the two cars were going to shape up in qualifying and then, of course, for the race tomorrow. I've narrowed it down just to Carlos versus Max Verstappen because that's how it was always going to pan out. And look at that run again by Carlos Sainz. We talked about his consistency yesterday and how quick he was with fuel in the car. And we got to assume here that they are running just about the same amount of fuel. The top speeds through the start-finish line or the trap very near the start-finish line at the end of Sector 3, almost the same. Carlos Sainz, 25.9, 24.7, 24.7, 24.9, 24.9, 24.9. Absolutely brilliant. Max Verstappen, who was out at the track at the same time, they both ran light fuel initially, then they did the fuel runs, then they did some quicker runs with light fuel again towards the end of FP3. 26.2, 26.2, 26.0, 25.5, 25.4, 25.8, 31.0. And there were a couple of cool-down laps for Carlos as well. So on the basis of what happened overnight, you'd have to say not much changed for Red Bull. So then one comment that echoed in my mind was Max saying, well, we'll see what happens when we all start to turn up engine power for qualifying. Well, as we now know, Carlos Sainz just got the pole from Max Verstappen, who just beat Charles Leclerc in the other Ferrari. It was unbelievably close. So what we're looking at here is a circuit layout that is absolutely perfect for the qualities of the Ferrari when they're all running in light downforce trim. We said at Zandvoort, and I'll repeat the point, that Ferrari were very quick in a straight line there, but that was mainly because they couldn't get enough downforce into the car or out of the car, however you want to look at it. But taking that to Monza, everybody running in lighter downforce trim, Ferrari were able to build on that top speed advantage. And that's what we're seeing here at Monza. Having said all of that, Carlos Sainz was quickest on his pole lap through Sector 2. And I put that down to 2 things. One, Max Verstappen made a mistake in Q1 at the exit of the second Lesmo, and his first time in Q1 on the hard tyre was deleted because he ran a little bit wide. We've seen from Max over the course of this season that whenever there is some sort of incident, whether it be Perez crashing at Zandvoort, whether it be something else, whether it be Max making a mistake, he then tends to leave a little bit of margin because, well, why not? I mean, he's walking away with the World Championship. Why does he need to take any more risks? At that point in Q1, he just needed to get through into Q2. And then in Q3, on the absolute limit, would it have been in his mind perhaps to leave a little bit of margin through the second Lesmo? Maybe, maybe not. We'll never know. Probably Max doesn't even know. It's just a little voice inside his head. But at the same time, it was just fabulous to watch Carlos Sainz through there. Those who are regular viewers of this channel know that I go on and on about the importance of, well, the benefit of short corners in Formula One. Carlos Sainz is not a short corner driver, but I have said he's one of the very best long corner drivers. He can get an incredible flow and rhythm into his driving, providing he's driving just under his limit and he's not locking up brakes under high-speed braking. And I think one of the great things about Carlos's driving here this weekend at Monza was his ability under high-speed braking to get the car really stable. Having got that platform, it was then just a question of getting that beautiful rhythm with his long corners around Monza. There's not an enormous benefit for running short corners around Monza because it's all about flow, it's all about rhythm, And it's all about putting the lap together. Sector 1 leads into Sector 2 in a way that you normally don't see at other circuits. If you've got a great exit from the chicane, the first chicane, there's a long run right down to the second chicane. And Sectors 1 and 2, the division is just there. And it's a similar thing between Sectors 2 and 3. I mean, Carlos not even thinking about staying on the right-hand side of the road out of Ascari. Those little details, forget about it. Charles Leclerc was doing that. Max Verstappen, when it was an important lap, was doing that. And Fernando Alonso was continuing to do that, but not Carlos Sainz. He just comes out of Ascari and then just a big, lovely swoop back to the left-hand side. I say lovely because it looks graceful in a way. And I thought his entry into Parabolica was kind of graceful as well, compared, as I said yesterday, to Sergio Perez, who always has that slight flare to the left as he goes in. Carlos is keeping the car lovely and straight. Yeah, it's a slightly wider turn-in than Charles Leclerc, but it's beautiful to watch. And he just strung the lap together. If you watch that pole lap of Carlos Sainz, there's nothing special about the lap. It's just all about rhythm and stringing the lap together. But there was one other very important point about that lap. Let's have a look at the qualifying speed trap. Now, I haven't included all the runners there because there's a lot of names, a lot of numbers, obviously. I've included the key players in terms of getting through into the top 10 and who might play a serious role in the race tomorrow. Carlos Sainz through the speed trap, and this is before the braking area of turn 1. They've gone through that other trap that I was talking about yesterday around the start-finish line area. Carlos Sainz, 350.8. quickest through the speed trap. Charles Leclerc, 348.9. So he has a slight advantage as well, whether it be trim, whether it be engine, whatever it is. Carlos Sainz was the fastest car around Monza today in a straight line. So he took advantage of that, and that definitely helped him throughout the lap, no doubt about that. Alex Albon second, 349. Charles Leclerc, 348.9. Charles Leclerc saying after Q3 being interviewed by David Valsecchi, former Formula 2 champion who never really raced again after that in single-seaters, never got a chance in Formula 1. What does that say about the way Formula 1, Formula 2, Formula 3 looks after its champions? Not very much, I'm afraid. Anyway, getting back to the point, Charles Leclerc saying, but I didn't really get the help of a tow in Q3. The implication being, I guess, that he was hoping to get one from, I don't know, his teammate Carlos. But then you watch Carlos's lap, he didn't have a tow either. So I'm not quite sure what Charles was implying there. But he did pay tribute to Carlos Sainz, I thought, in a very dignified way. And there's no doubt about it. As I said yesterday, Carlos Sainz this weekend, as he has been over the last 4 or 5 races, he's just looking so good in that car. And I thought Carlos just looked so good out of the car afterwards as well. Not a lot of jumping up and down and screaming, just in a very, very nice way. And Carlos has gone through a reasonable amount over the last 18 months, particularly, I don't know if this is right or not, but they say that, you know, his friendship with Fernando Alonso isn't as close as it used to be. The two Spaniards, Fernando's beginning all the publicity in the limelight, certainly in Spain. I can vouch for that. And for Carlos Sainz to go out and do that at Monza in a Ferrari, wow, it's just so impressive. Anyway, getting back to the point, Charles Leclerc, 348. Then Lando Norris, 346. McLaren, I mean, look at 346 compared with the factory Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton and George Russell, 340, 338. McLaren, 346, and Piastri in the other car, 343. So, again, you got to ask, what are Mercedes doing? I said yesterday, very slow in a straight line, particularly Lewis. Okay, they got Lewis's car up to speed, kind of. But look at George Russell and Lewis. In terms of the quick runners who should be out there thinking about a win in the Italian Grand Prix in the build-up to the race, 330, let's call it 340, 10 kilometers an hour slower than the Ferrari around Monza in light downforce trim. That's not very impressive, is it? Max Verstappen, 344, Sergio Perez, 345. Again, that is the difference between a Max lap around Monza going for the pole and a Carlos Sainz lap. Carlos Sainz, because he's got pretty good grip everywhere and he's driving the car really well, he's got an advantage in that top speed, and that's where the pole came from. And Max, you got to say, I don't know, maybe you could say 344 top speed against Carlos Sainz 350. Wow, amazing that he did virtually the same lap time and almost took the pole. That's another way of looking at it, of course. Let's have a look at another thing here now as well, and that is the effect of DRS. And you can see next, I've put them in the order of in which they qualified. SF is start-finish line. And Carlos Sainz also had the biggest difference, as you can see there, biggest increase between the start-finish line and the speed trap, picking up 35 38.3 kilometers. So that means Ferrari also, in this low downforce spec, are also getting a lot of benefit from their DRS, 35.3. Compare that with others. Max Verstappen, a 28.6 increase. So that's quite significant. Charles Leclerc underlining the effectiveness of the Ferrari DRS, 33.9. George Russell, 27.1. Lewis Hamilton, 28.1. Not very good. Sergio Perez, 32. And Max Verstappen, 28.6. There's a pattern there, and you can see it. Ferrari have not only a great top speed around Monza for the lap that they're putting together, but they also have a very effective DRS. So going back to the other point, which is Max Verstappen and Carlos Sainz both saying after qualifying, well, we'll see what happens tomorrow in Max's case. And in Carlos Sainz's case, well, Red Bull are always really good on fuel runs. We'll see how it goes tomorrow. I would say right now, Carlos Sainz is in really, really good shape, because if he's doing those sorts of lap times, it would appear, he's going to be able to back away from that limit and start looking after the tyres in a way that a Ferrari driver has not been able to do for a long, long time. That's quite a significant advantage in terms of the lap time, because of the top speed, because of the way they got the car set up with that light downforce trim. And he can start to look after the rear tyres. And that will be the Achilles heel of Ferrari. I mean, Max will be thinking, okay, if I don't take the lead and I'm behind Carlos, I'll have the benefit of DRS, obviously, which may or may not be enough to pass him. And beyond that, it'll be the usual thing. Maybe I can push him, and maybe I can manage my tyres and get through, make the stint longer. But with that, you got to say Carlos Sainz could be driving fast enough to stay in front and looking after the rear tyres. That's the challenge, of course, that he faces. Let's have a look at some of the other results from qualifying as well. I'm actually putting this up because there were some really interesting comparisons today around Monza. Some of them very good, some of them not so good. So these are comparisons within the teams, and if you read the first column down and then the second column, that's the order in which effectively they all qualified. So you can see there a very small margin between Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc. I've been saying, Carlos has done a better job all weekend, but Charles Leclerc, as I said yesterday, kind of got his act together, just never looked quite the same as he normally does around Monza. Maybe he is good around Monza, we know that, but equally he's had some bad days around Monza, and by his own admission, he hasn't been doing very well anyway recently. So I think that's fair enough. I think this is the correct result, given the way Carlos Sainz has been driving in recent races and how good he looked in the car today. So Max Verstappen 20.3, Sergio Perez 20.6. That's about right around Monza, I think. Perez pretty good, there or thereabouts. He's what Red Bull would require of their number 2 driver. He did have that big moment at the Parabolica yesterday, probably leaving a bit of margin. George Russell blew away Lewis Hamilton, 20.6 to 20.8. Lewis in Q2 talking about being held up by Perez, but then kind of saying not long afterwards, I haven't got any grip. Well, yeah, I'm sure George didn't have much grip either if they're set up that Mercedes are running in order to be reasonably good on the straight. And they're not that good on the straight, got to say, as we saw. George doing a better job in a car that's obviously quite difficult to drive around Monza. And where one teammate didn't make it through from Q3 to Q2, for example, and first example now from Williams, I've put the lap time of the quicker driver in the session in which the slower driver was knocked out, because then you've seen the comparable time on the same tyres. They ran hard, medium and then soft in the 3 different qualifying sessions. So on the medium tyre, because Logan Sargent made it through into Q2, Alex Albon did 21.272, Logan Sargent 21.9. Really good job, really, 0.7. But to get through to Q2, a lot of quick guys didn't. Very, very impressive performance again, I thought, by Logan Sargent. Oscar Piastri, quicker than Lando Norris in Q3, did a really good job again, 20.7 compared with Lando's 20.9. McLaren, as I said in the build-up to this race, perhaps with the compound a bit softer. It's not the hard compound that McLaren love and have gone so well on in various races, Silverstone and Zandvoort being obviously good examples, in Spain as well. Here, back on the softer tyre, McLaren not quite as competitively sharp as they've looked as they looked at Zandvoort anyway. And Oscar doing a very good job. What can you say? Fernando Alonso in the same session in Q1 that Lance Stroll got knocked out from, 0.8 quicker than Lance Stroll. Enough said. Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson both made it through to Q2, didn't make it through to Q3, but look how close Liam is there to Yuki Tsunoda. Yuki did a very good job around Monza. I thought he's always been quick here, even going back to the F3 days. So Liam Lawson, again, thumbs up to him. Nico Hülkenberg made it through to Q2, but in Q1 he did 22.3 to Kevin Magnussen's 22.5. He made it through to Q2. Kevin didn't. Another good performance from Nico, who put in, I think also got the award for the quote of the day, if not the weekend, when he said that Aston Martin guy is dreaming again. Don't forget, Nico used to drive for Force India, of course, and I guess when he was referring to that Aston Martin guy, he wasn't referring to Fernando Alonso. And worth pointing out again, I think it's got to be said, isn't it, that Lance Stroll 22.8 and Logan Sargent 21.9, and don't forget that basically Lawrence Stroll took his son Lance out of Williams because he wanted to give him a much better team, bought Force India and to spend all that money on Force India. And he got Logan Sargent 21.9 to Lance Stroll 22.8. Yeah, please advise. As I think I've said before, Valtteri Bottas 22.2, Guan Yu Zhou in the same session 22.3, very close. Valtteri made it through to Q2, Guan Yu did not. And Alpine, just pathetic, really. I mean, and you can't say you can't say traffic or lack of a tow, because look, they both did the same time. They're both quick drivers, Gasly and Ocon. 22.5, 22.5. I mean, just pathetic. And this is Gasly coming off a Dutch Grand Prix when he was fourth on the road, third with the penalty to Sergio Perez. And look where they are when they're taking downforce out of the car to get some top speed. They're just nowhere. Terrible. So there we are. Always good to have a Ferrari on the pole at Monza. And Carlos Sainz, he is a very cool guy, isn't he? And he looks like a Ferrari driver. And for me, one of the most charming things was how he wasn't all over the top. I mean, he was just right, as you would expect Carlos Sainz Jr. to be, the son of the famous Carlos Sainz Sr., who is all class as well. So congratulations to him. Really good to see. The story tomorrow then is, will things run to form? And if Max is behind a Ferrari or two early on, will he win the race because he's got much better time management? Or will the data that we're seeing today and that we saw yesterday coming into today very, very accurately, will that data then extend through into the race and enable Ferrari not only to win a Grand Prix for in the first time, I don't know how long, but also to break that monopoly of Red Bull and Max Verstappen? We'll see tomorrow. And Monza, of course, can always produce surprise results. Remember back in 1988 when McLaren were on that unbelievable string of race wins, and the only race they didn't win in 88 was the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, shortly after the death, you've got to say, of Enzo Ferrari, when Gerhard Berger and Michele Alboreto won the Italian Grand Prix, finished 1-2. Could that happen tomorrow? Let's wait and see. Big thanks to Pitbox.io and to Jetcraft. And if you get a chance, have a look at the interview we've done with Jackie Stewart last Tuesday, just 2 or 3 days ago, in the build-up to the Italian Grand Prix. He's looking back 50 years on the day when he clinched his third World Championship by finishing fourth in the Tyrrell. But lots to look forward to tomorrow, and I'll be seeing you after the race. Thanks for watching.